Welcome back, listeners. We're diving deep today into Sally Rooney's Normal People.
Yeah.
We're going to go beyond just the plot, really trying to understand these characters, how they relate to each other, and what makes Rooney's writing so gripping.
It's one of those books that even if you haven't exactly lived through these situations yourself, it gets under your skin.
He really does. So we've got Connell and Marianne,
Yeah.
two teenagers in this small Irish town, and there's this pull between them right from the beginning, undeniable. They start this relationship, but they keep it secret, especially at school. Why? What do you think is going on there?
Well, I think Rooney, right off the bat, she sets up this tension between like what you want privately and how you have to appear in public.
Yeah.
Especially for Connell.
Right.
He's popular, athletic, fits in, no problem. But it's almost like those very things are trapping him.
Yeah.
He's terrified of being seen with Marianne. She's kind of an outcast, right?
Yeah.
And he's so afraid of what it would do to his place in the social order.
There's that scene where he just cringes at the thought of his friends seeing him with Marianne. It's like you can feel it.
Exactly. It's like Rooney is showing us how strict the social rules are in this town, Caraclea. For Connell, being connected to Marianne, that's like social suicide. It's not just that she's different. She represents everything he's like desperately trying to avoid. Judgment, exclusion, being seen as less than.
It's interesting, though, because while Marianne might be the outcast at school, she kind of has this strange power over Connell, doesn't she?
She does.
I mean, she's sharp, she's unapologetically herself, and she really just doesn't seem to care what anyone else thinks.
And that brings up a big question. Is this uncaring persona? Is it really her? Or is it like a defense mechanism? Because she is clearly intelligent, sensitive, but she puts on this front almost like she's detached, aloof.
Right.
Maybe it's a way to protect herself in a place where she constantly feels judged.
It makes you wonder if maybe she feels like she's got less to lose socially than Connell does, And it also makes me think about their class difference and how that plays into everything. Connell's mom, she cleans for Marianne's family.
Oh, that detail.
Eh.
That adds such a whole other layer, doesn't it? It really highlights all the societal norms, the expectations. That can actually influence even your most personal relationships.
Yeah.
I mean, even if they weren't consciously thinking about it, that difference in class, it probably makes Connell's anxiety even worse.
He's trying to navigate these two worlds that are constantly bumping up against each other, and this tension between who they are when they're alone versus who they feel they have to be in public. It really comes through in Rooney's writing, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Her use of those short sentences, very declarative, and the internal monologues, it creates this feeling of immediacy, like you're right there.
You're in their heads.
Yeah, you're right there in their heads, experiencing their thoughts and feelings in real time.
Like we're eavesdropping on their inner turmoil.
Precisely. And even her dialogue.
Mhm.
Often she doesn't even use character names, which even further blurs those lines between what's going on inside them and how they're acting outwardly.
There's that part where Connell's in therapy and he's filling out one of those questionnaires.
Yes.
And the language is just so stark, so bare. It really captures that feeling of being emotionally exposed, doesn't it?
Rooney, she is just masterful at capturing those thoughts and feelings that are unspoken. She doesn't shy away from those awkward silences or those moments of self-doubt or just uncertainty, which make up so much of just being human.
And those moments of uncertainty, they get even bigger when they both end up at Trinity College in Dublin. It's like Rooney flips the power dynamic on purpose.
Really is.
Marianne, she's thriving socially, but Connell, he's struggling to find his footing.
She really comes alive in Dublin, doesn't she?
Does it?
And it makes you question all those assumptions we have about social mobility, privilege. Just because Marianne comes from this wealthier background, it doesn't mean she's guaranteed happiness or success. And Connell, coming from a working class background, doesn't mean he's destined to struggle.
Right.
Rooney is showing us that these categories, they're fluid. They're complicated.
They both are trying to figure out who they are outside of this small town, but it's like their past keeps shaping their present,
Absolutely. And it brings us to another major theme here, communication, or maybe more accurately, the lack of it. I mean, Connell and Marianne, they constantly misread each other, their actions, They fail to say what they're really feeling.
There's that scene at the Debs. Oh, my heart. Connell trying so hard to fit in, he doesn't stand up for Marianne when his friends are just awful to her.
That's such a pivotal moment, I think, because it shows how fragile their connection is. He's so worried about what other people think that he betrays her trust.
And the fallout is it's devastating for both of them.
It really sets the tone for their whole relationship going forward. They both want to be understood so badly, but their insecurities, their fear of being vulnerable, it prevents them from really communicating.
It's like they're speaking different languages, even though they have this deep connection.
Exactly. And this disconnect, it continues. As they navigate college life, their social circles change. They keep getting stuck in these cycles of attraction and rejection,
Yeah.
never quite finding that balance they're both searching for.
So we left off with Connell and Marianne, kind of at a crossroads, each of them starting this new chapter. Connell decides on college in Galway, staying close to home. But Marianne, she heads off to Trinity in Dublin. What do you think? What do their choices tell us about where they are in the story?
I think it shows how different their desires are, and their fears. Connell, even though he did great in school, he seems to want that familiar feeling, the approval of his hometown. He doesn't want to step outside what he's comfortable with. Maybe still a little bit haunted by those social anxieties we talked about.
Almost like he's afraid of the unknown, of what might happen if he goes too far from what he knows.
Exactly. And Marianne, on the other hand, she's drawn to the intellectual freedom and the social scene of Dublin. It's an escape for her from that stifling environment of Caraclea, like a place where she can become someone new.
But even with the distance, their connection, it doesn't go away. They keep talking, at least a little bit. It's like that bond, it's hard to break.
It speaks to how deeply they connect, I think. They recognize something in each other, something they haven't found anywhere else. But this time apart, it also reveals their individual weaknesses.
Connell, for instance, he starts dating Helen, a girl from his dorm in Galway. It seems like he's trying to have that normal college experience, but you can tell something's not quite right.
Right person, wrong time, maybe. He's still dealing with all his insecurities and that fear of judgment. He's just not ready to face those feelings he has for Marianne, not fully.
And Marianne, while she's, trying to build a new life in Dublin, she's still she wants Connell's approval.
She does. She gets in with this group of students, very artsy, intellectual, but you sense she's still looking for something or someone to fill a void.
Yeah.
It's like neither of them can fully escape what they had before.
And then, boom, they run into each other unexpectedly at this party in Dublin, like some magnetic force pulling them back together.
Oh, the chemistry is undeniable. They fall right back into those old patterns, the intimacy. But there's so much left unsaid, like unfinished business.
There's that moment in Marianne's kitchen where Connell, he finally admits it, that he was afraid of what his friends would think if they knew about them. It's a vulnerable moment, but it also shows how much those social rules, how deeply they can get inside you, even when you know they're stupid, they're limited.
It is. It's like Connell's finally acknowledging it.
Yeah.
That social pressure, how much it influenced him back in Caraclea to push Marianne away.
And for Marianne, hearing him say that, it must be both validating but also so painful.
It confirms what she suspected, that he did care for her deeply.
Yeah.
But it also brings back all that hurt from when he chose his social standing over their connection.
It's a real turning point for them. They start seeing each other more, but it's not easy. Marianne especially, she's still struggling with her past.
She keeps seeking out these partners who mistreat her, almost like she's punishing herself or trying to recreate those unhealthy dynamics she had at home.
It's tough to watch someone so smart, so capable, trapped in these cycles of abuse.
It shows just how complex trauma can be and how it can lead to self-destructive behavior. It's not something she can just, snap out of.
And Connell, he's becoming more aware of what she's going through, but he often feels helpless. He wants to protect her, but he's realizing he can't fix everything.
Right. He's still figuring himself out, what he wants out of life. He doesn't always know how to handle the intensity of Marianne's needs.
And the way they communicate, it's a bit better, but still flawed. They overthink everything, second-guess their feelings, and it leads to more misunderstandings, more missed chances.
They're constantly circling each other, afraid to commit, afraid of getting hurt again.
And then you've got the added complication of their social circles. Marianne, she gets disillusioned with her group of friends in Dublin. Peggy, especially, she's toxic.
Yeah, Peggy's always putting Marianne down, those little digs. So obviously her own insecurity, her jealousy coming out, and it hurts Marianne, who's already struggling with her self-worth.
And Connell, seeing all this, he's torn. Between being loyal to Marianne and wanting to fit in himself, he sees the damage Peggy's doing, but he doesn't step in.
Tough spot. He doesn't want to overstep, but not saying anything. That speaks volumes, too.
It makes Marianne feel even more isolated,
Wow.
and it adds to the distance growing between them. It seems like every step forward, something pulls them back.
That's it. And as they're getting towards the end of their time as undergrads, they both have to face some hard truths about themselves and about their relationship. Connell, after struggling at Trinity, he decides to apply to this prestigious writing program in New York.
Wow, that's a big move.
It is. It shows he's getting more confident, more ambitious,
Hmm.
but it also raises questions about what'll happen with Marianne.
Yeah.
She's still in Dublin, dealing with the aftermath of a really bad relationship with Jamie, a guy who was, well, emotionally and physically abusive.
That's awful. It just shows how vulnerable Marianne is and how her past keeps affecting her present.
It makes her face that question.
Mm.
Why does she keep choosing partners who treat her badly?
And when Connell finds out about the abuse, he's furious and heartbroken. He wants to protect her, but he's also realizing he can't fix this.
It's a big moment of growth for both of them.
Yeah.
Connell learns he can't control everything. And Marianne, she starts to see that she deserves more than those toxic relationships.
So with Connell about to leave for New York, it's a big question mark hanging over them. Can they handle the distance? Have they grown enough on their own and together to make it work this time?
It's a question that's going to stay with us as we go into the last part of their story.
Mm.
And it makes us all think about our own ideas about love, forgiveness, second chances.
Let's take a minute to process all this, and then we'll dive into that final chapter, see what Rooney's ending tells us about how complicated human connections are.
So we've been with Connell and Marianne through those intense high school years and then those kind of bumpy college years. And now Connell's getting ready for New York. Marianne's back in Dublin. It's a crossroads, right? Can their relationship really survive that distance, or is this it for them?
It's interesting because being apart, it becomes this period of real self-reflection and growth for both of them. Connell, he's surrounded by all these other writers, and he's finally starting to face those insecurities that have been holding him back.
Mm.
He's finding his voice, not just in his writing, but as a person.
And Marianne, after everything with Jamie, she starts to really prioritize herself, her well-being. She goes back to therapy. She sets boundaries with people who've hurt her. And for the first time, it seems like she actually believes she deserves to be happy.
It's amazing to see that change in her, isn't it? Taking those steps.
Yeah. She's breaking free from those harmful patterns, taking control of her own life, realizing her own worth.
But even though they're literally miles apart, their connection, it doesn't just disappear. They're constantly emailing, sharing their thoughts, fears, dreams.
But the physical distance, it almost allows them to be more intimate in a way. They don't have the pressure of their friends, their families, all those expectations, so they can be more honest, more vulnerable with each other.
It makes me think about what you said earlier about how they always had trouble communicating because of all those unspoken things, those anxieties.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that by taking away those outside pressures, they can finally connect on a level they couldn't before?
I think so. It's like their emails, they become a form of therapy almost. They're processing everything they've been through, supporting each other through these big life changes. And in doing that, they're understanding themselves better and their relationship.
And through all that self-discovery, that honest communication, they come to this realization they love each other, not just some idealized version, but the people they've become with all their flaws, their complexities.
It's a love that's been through the ringer,
Yeah.
shaped by everything they've experienced together. It acknowledges their weaknesses, their mistakes, how they've both grown.
And towards the end, we see them back in Caraclea, both drawn back to their hometown for different reasons.
Yeah. There's a sense of coming full circle, like their journey has led them back to where it all began. They've both matured, both as individuals and as a couple. They've faced their demons, pushed back against all those societal rules, and found their own way.
And in that last scene, Connell, he asks Marianne to stay in Caraclea with him. He's even willing to give up his dream of going to New York to be with her. Wow.
It's a powerful moment. It says so much about how much she means to him.
It really shows how much he's grown, how his priorities have changed. It's a depth of love and commitment we haven't seen from him before.
And Marianne, after a pause, she says yes. And that choice, I think it reflects her own growth too. That newfound ability to trust, to let herself be vulnerable.
She's letting go of the past, finally believing that she deserves happiness, that she can build a life with someone who truly sees her, accepts her for who she is.
The book ends with this beautiful image of them holding each other, finding comfort and strength in their connection. It feels hopeful, but there's also like a lingering uncertainty.
Right. Normal people, it doesn't wrap everything up neatly. It leaves us with these questions about love, loss, the power of human connection. It makes you wonder, can their love really survive through all the everyday challenges life throws at them? And I think that's what's so brilliant about Rooney's writing. She forces us to confront those messy, complicated feelings, those unknowns. It's a reminder that even in the strongest relationships, there's always going to be some mystery. It's real. It's not shying away from how messy human experience can be.
It's one of those books that stays with you long after you finish reading it. It makes you think about your own life, your own relationships, how you navigate that dance between connection and disconnection.
So, to our listeners, if you haven't read Normal People yet, I really urge you to give it a try. It's a rich, thought provoking story, and you might just find pieces of your own life reflected in its pages.
Even if your life looks nothing like Connell and Marianne's, you'll connect with those universal themes. Love, longing, figuring yourself out, trying to find connection in a world that can feel so isolating.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Sally Rooney's Normal People. We hope it's giving you some new perspectives and that you'll keep exploring those complex human relationships, both in the books you read and in your own lives. Until next time.